Welcome everybody to the closing keynote of AppSecCon 2023. It's been 2 days of sessions with a lot of learning, insights, and we want to close off with a subject that what the Purple Book community and AppSecCon hopes to achieve in the longer term. That is to disrupt the status quo. Using the power of community to disrupt the status quo. And joining me today are two experts in building communities and disrupting industries in their own areas. We have Reavis, who is CEO of Cloud Security Alliance, a 30-year veteran in security industry, and he'll be sharing his experience about how CSA has played a role in rapid adoption of cloud and securing that. And also I have Manoj Apte. Manoj Apte, he's an ex-Chief Strategy Officer of Zscaler. He was one of the early team members at Zscaler when it started. He played a key role in its phenomenal growth. And just earlier this year, he decided to take some time off and spend it with the family and maybe advise some startups to change the world all over again. So welcome, Manoj and Jim.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Yeah. So let's get started here. So we are talking about the power of communities. And one of the best examples that I see of the power of community is Cloud Security Alliance that many of the people in the audience are very familiar with. So Jim, can you briefly walk us through the journey of CSA, how it started and where it is now and the impact it has made?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, really when you think about cybersecurity even more broadly, it's always been about the power of communities. And the RSA conference really was a community that a conference was sort of built so that very small group of cybersecurity professionals could meet. DEF CON, very much the same way. So the observation I made was that we are at a point in time that was a very fundamental shift in the history of computing, where we were transitioning from traditional on-premise compute to compute moving to being a utility delivered on demand. Very much like how the electrical grid was formed in the 1800s and really transformed the Industrial Revolution. You could see it was going to change compute. And it was going to do that in a way that wasn't just technology, but it's also the business model where you have providers that are provisioning this. And so for me, the idea was that we need to be proactive and we need to give organizations defensible best practices for managing the risks for this new paradigm that needed to be communicated to the business, to legal, to audit, to IT, as well as the cybersecurity professionals that are very much at the core of what we were doing. And so the idea that I had was, let's not just announce it, but let's announce this with like a good first version of the best practices. So use some of the existing communities are out there. I went to the ISSA, which is a well-known community, and asked them to assist. And so we got a group together. And it was at that point where social media was just starting to get off the ground as well. And we could use that to crowdsource a lot of this research. So we brought in the stakeholders, legal, audit, domain experts in all aspects of security, from identity management to viruses to application security too. And so by doing that, we were able to provide these best practices that a lot of organizations came back to me and said, had we not had those best practices when we first talked about introducing cloud to organization, it would have slowed us down by 2 to 4 years. And so it was a multi-million-dollar argument on the behalf of like these large enterprises. So, the community was able to do that. And our industry, cybersecurity, is very much like the fire department, where you kind of look beyond the boundaries of your own organization, and how do you help each other across those boundaries, and how do you help individuals with a lot of the challenges they had. So that was 2009. It's been a great ride, and definitely I'm just a big believer that any shared interests that people have in our industry, they can create a community. It can be a small community, it can be a large community, but by getting the right perspectives, those different perspectives from different stakeholders, you can make a big impact.
All right, thank you. Well, yeah, and the impact is very self-evident as we see. It's fantastic that you talked about how it's important that we involve the different stakeholders to get an awareness of the new technologies and the benefits and even the risks that come with it. And one of the challenges that we are dealing with in software security is that software, we know every company is a software company now, whether it is Coca-Cola, Disney, Google, or Johnson Controls, right? So software is so central to a company's business strategy, but securing that is not very central to a company's business strategy. So an awareness needs to be created from the engineers to the managers, directors, and all the way to the board of directors, right? So there are different stakeholders that we need to bring into the dialogue here. And also we need to bring the development organizations into the conversations, because ultimately they are the ones who are going to fix the vulnerabilities, right? So thank you for sharing the journey that you had in convincing those different stakeholders to be part of this solution. So Manoj, coming to you now. So in your experience, can you share your experience engaging with communities, either industry-based communities or company-based communities, in basically bringing about change that at once was thought impossible?
Absolutely. And as Jim said, communities are key for any large change in an industry, right? When Cloud Security Alliance was formulated, we were lucky to be part of Jim's initial work. We contributed as much as we could in the early draft of creation of CSA, but it was because there was such a large shift that people needed a structure to think through. And there is always vendors responding to market forces, but then each responds with their own way of doing it. What is the way that a company should think about its own security when everything moves from on-prem to cloud was not trivial. And something like Cloud Security Alliance is required for the smarts in the industry to come together. Because, you know, at the end of the day, analyst, actually she's architect of United, posted recently on LinkedIn saying United and Delta don't compete on security, right? It is much better for them to work together because the adversary is going after all of us equally. They are not going after one versus the other. They are also attacking the same infrastructure, whether it is Python, Node, NPM, or it is Microsoft and Linux. We all face the same vulnerabilities. They are going after those vulnerabilities. How to defend doesn't need to be proprietary. The more we share, the better we defend ourselves. And so as we started Zscaler and as we started working with CSA, it was very evident that unless we are part of a large community, unless we contribute to communities, we can't be better defenders ourselves. And so, 100% communities are very, very critical, because at the end of the day, it is the humans that protect a company, right? Yes, you have tools, you have software, but it's the humans. And making sure that everyone that is involved has a structured way of thinking, has a consistent way of reporting, has a consistent way of saying, what is the status of my security posture right now, becomes very, very important. Otherwise, everyone feels like, I put a firewall, I think I'm secure. That's not really true, right? Ever. And so, yes, communities are important. Knowledge sharing is important. And each time a shift happens in how we do our business, a new community that addresses that becomes important. And so I'm really thrilled about AppSecCon and PurpleBook community on what we are bringing together in terms of this change, where it is not about just protecting a website. right? It is about protecting the full dev chain from development to infrastructure to the applications that are being built and the vulnerabilities that come through. And there are 1,000 signals. How do you make sense of all of that, right? And so really happy to be part of Purple Book community. I think we are on the right track on what we are doing. Our work with CSA will only help the community come together. So the more people that come together, the better our brains, combined brain power will be, and the better outcomes we will have for ourselves.
All right. Very well put, Manoj. So you talked about the power of the importance of cooperating rather than competing, even among companies that are traditional competitors in other dimensions. Right. I can share, it's funny that you use the airline industry example. I also have a very same example in Purple Book community where I introduced at one of the gatherings leaders from two different industries, two different companies in the same industry. And they said, you know what, I had never met somebody from that company because we are dead rivals, right? But I can see where a community like Purple Book community can bring these things together because our interests converge, right? Security hackers do not make distinction between one or the other. So you made a great point on that. Yeah.
In fact, to add to it, right, when we started creating communities within Zscaler of practitioners, we had every large oil and natural gas come together, every big bank come together. Right? Yeah. Yes, they compete, but we had all of them sitting in a room brainstorming on how do we leverage cloud security better? How do we do this better? Right? Sharing best practices with each other. And that helps everyone build better products. It also helps everyone defend better because finally, a breach does not only affect that company. It does affect the company that was hit 100%, but it takes down the industry as a whole. If you look at the stock ticker after any breach, everyone goes down, not just one. And so security is not where you compete. Security is where you collaborate and make each other better.
Very important. Very great point that you made. And the other point that you made, Manoj, you talked about why it's important that everybody has a similar set of frameworks that they can assess their progress against the goal that they want to go after, right? So we have maturity models in our industry as well. We have BSIM, we have OWASP. They do a very fine job of measuring the maturity of the application security. One thing that we are seeing, the whole industry is changing so rapidly. The software, of course, is getting released faster and faster, sometimes even on a daily basis. And even the applications and the infrastructure that they're working on, the infrastructure space is changing as well. There is shift to cloud, there's shift to containers, there is shift now, infrastructure has a code itself. Right. So it's very important. We cannot now say that we secure application, we measure its maturity and be sure that the applications are now secure. It's like the example that you gave where you said, you know what, I have a firewall installed and now I'm secure. It's not. By just securing the AppSec part of it, you're not secure. You need to secure the infrastructure part of it and the cloud part of it. So that's why in Purple Book community, we are coming together with a new maturity model we call the S3M2, like the R2-D2 from Star Wars, right? That's a way to remember. So S3M2, Scalable Software Security Maturity Model. And this measures the company's progress along 3 different dimensions. And that's why we are calling it the Software Security Maturity Model, not the AppSec maturity model.
Makes sense.
Right. So great points there. So Jim, so coming back to you, if I can ask you a question about along the journey, right? CSA has made a lot of impact. Can you think of maybe any challenges that you faced along the way and how using the might of a community and its participants, you were able to overcome them?
Yeah, just to think of a few, and this is an observation that I had, that there's been fundamentally in the last 10 to 12 years a real shift where cybersecurity is a very integral part of national security around the world. And that really wasn't the case in the earlier part of my career. In fact, we always would complain on how it was so ignored and underfunded in governments. And so one of the things that we did at the beginning, and we think it's been like very good, has been the chapter model. And we have about 175,000 members that are in 110 or so chapters in about 60 countries. And there's so many different regulatory compliance issues that go around regional and national lines, in addition to all of the things that are global. And the organizations that need to use all this technology are very global. And Zscaler has customers that they are in maybe every country in the world. And so you've got cultural issues, you've got different privacy laws, you've got different languages, so many different things. The chapter model has allowed us to sort of federate global best practices with local needs. We've had chapters that have done hundreds of translations of documents from our source English, where we produce all of them into all the different ways that people need to consume the information. They've gamified some, they've done so much. There's so much innovation that's happened in that way. So, our ability to do core research, provide education, and to do both like individual professional credentialing as well as organizational certification to cloud security best practices. It's been in large degree to people organizing themselves around potentially regional lines, cultural lines, national lines, maybe domain expertise, or they're very interested in identity management or other things like that. And to move very rapidly, have this idea of let's look to manage the risks. Let's do applied business research for things that are going to be important in the next while. So, today our cloud controls framework is so pervasive. Literally any organization that's of any size that has its own cybersecurity program, they're using it to some degree. It's close to 100% market penetration. So that is not a top-down thing from me, but it is that rank and file cybersecurity professional that's embraced it. And it really does speak to the power of the community. They become your channel. They become your evangelists to make these things happen.
All right. Yeah, great point. Just the scale and size of the impact that you mentioned is just inspiring. There is a reason behind the success that cloud is having in adoption. And it's like the example that I could think of was like when a duck sails on a water, it seems like it's just a rapid adoption, right? Like a smooth sailing, but there is a lot of pedaling that's happening below the surface, right? It's not just top down you're talking about bottom up, right? It needs to be brought by the rank and files of an organization here. So thank you very much for sharing that perspective. And I'm actually, I feel very inspired about the journey that you started on and the impact that we can have. The journey for Purple Book community is long because we are just starting off on this journey to create awareness about the importance of software security. Software security, we believe, has not got its due, even though software is the central part of any industrial strategy these days. So Manoj, coming to you now. So you have some idea about the Purple Book community, right? You have engaged with us. So where do you think, in terms of the impact that the community can make in bringing the topic of securing the importance of software lies? Where do you think it can make an impact?
So no, this is an amazing effort that you guys are doing, and I'm happy to be part of. Very much like Jim said, when cloud happened, doing just bringing everyone's expertise together, from identity to how infrastructure is done, etc., to build out the models that they built, building out the star for the vendors to certify themselves. All of that was very, very important steps to do the groundwork of creating a way of thinking about security in a consistent manner. In some way, AppSecCon or PBC has it even harder, because you are going not just after one part. You have to talk about, when I say web application, or when I say application, not web, it means web applications, APIs, all of the front end, all of the middleware, all of the back end, all of the dev processes that go along. How do I manage identity? How do I manage remote access to this management? Do I outsource this? There are many, many, many areas. To put it all together, exactly, I love Jim's points about creating global standards that can act locally. It becomes even more important in this area, right? This is the beginning of what CSA has already gone to, and your journey is potentially even larger with many more different types of hats to be brought together to say, here's the best practices of all of these, and how do we work together to create a community that builds secure applications, whether the company is in the security business or not, right? None of us are. We are all, I mean, Zscaler is, but a United Airlines or a Coca-Cola is not in the business of security, but they cannot afford not to be. And the community helps for that, right? One of the things that I also wanted to mention was people point at regulation saying, oh, but there's regulation, I'm XYZ compliant. That's never enough. It's just a basic checkbox to say, okay, it is better than not having it 100%, but it is having the sense of competition within the community that says, I am doing better, right? It's not just about, or another fun one. When I was working with a lot of customers in Zscaler, one of the banks used to say, we have a no vendor left behind policy. Right? Because there are so many things to take care of. You could, that was 10 years ago, you could potentially do no vendor left behind. You go to RSA now, it's impossible. There are so many things to take care of that just having a lot of vendors is not the point. How to use it, how to make sure what you deployed is actually giving you the result and giving you the effectiveness, how to bring all of that together into a consistent way of measuring yourself becomes way more important than the number of vendors you have in your arsenal, so to say. So no, I'm super thrilled about what you guys are building with the maturity model that we are building together. It will bring consistency to application security thinking as a whole. It has to start at the ground, as Jim said, right? The developers have to do it. But I think Purple Book community, as we mature it, will also help CISOs and risk owners and compliance owners to start having a more mature way of looking at their own organization's risk appetite, right? And what they need to be doing. So very happy that we are doing this, thrilled that this community has come together to help us build it all out, and happy to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You said it so well. So that's what this journey is about, bringing different people from all parts of an organization, all parts of the ecosystem, and collectively bringing it to a level of maturity that we all can be confident that the software that the companies are using is now secure, right? So now talking about the standard way that we all can agree on and use to measure our own maturity along this journey, right? So I briefly talked about the S3M2 earlier. I'll end with this story about how the Purple Book community started, where we are, and the road ahead that we have, right? So the way the Purple Book community started, it was a group of 30 software security leaders who came together to co-author a book for the benefit of the community. It started off with 10 people actually, and then the references became very fast, and it became a group of 30 people. So it said that when an idea, Oscar Wilde said, an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped. That's what it felt like. We wrote the book. At the end of the book, people said, you know what, we had great time writing the book and sharing it with the community. And it was shared free of charge. So leaders gave their time and talent free of cost, because for the common good of the industry. And then it became a community. We need to not stop after the book is written. It became a community, and it has hundreds of members, 6 chapters now. And in this conference itself, we have thousands of people from 20 plus countries attending this event. So you can already see that the dialogue about application security is going far and wide. We have podcasts, blog discussions, panel discussions, and a conference like this. But I still feel, looking at the scale of what CSA has accomplished, the road ahead is still long for us. And I think we have made the right start with bringing the community together and having S3M2 has a way to measure our progress against the maturity for this, right? I believe technology is there to enable, but at the end of the day, it's the people who will use the technology, who will bring about the change. And I believe, just like in CSA, in Purple Book community, also in AppSec, we need a movement. And movements are about people, right? And I call upon everybody who's listening to this to join the movement to secure our software, which is so central to our organizational success, and be part of the journey here. And there are some specific steps that you can take to be part of this journey. You can go to the Purple Book community website, www.thepurplebook.club. It's thepurplebook.club, not .com. And if you search for S3M2, that's where we are inviting people to join us on this journey to creating a standard framework for measuring a maturity of a software security. We have level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, starting with reactive to making sure that, my software that I'm shipping is ready, to going to become managed, optimized, and dynamic, right? So we invite you to be part of it, contribute to the open source effort that's going on here. And hopefully, maybe a few years from now, Jim, Manoj, and maybe a few other members of the community, we can sit together, look back at the progress that's been made on this journey. So I'll end it off thanking you both for being here, inspiring with the stories of the success that you had. And we look forward to dialogue on this.
Thank you, and best wishes to the Purple Book community in the future.
Thank you.
Best wishes as well.
Thank you. All right, so we are at the end of AppSecCon Day 2 and the end of the conference itself. Thank you all very much for being part of this conference. It's our pleasure to have hosted you, and my immense gratitude and thanks for the speakers who were so generous with their time and talent in sharing their insights with the broader community. I believe that we have made some progress in our journey to AppSec maturity with the idea exchange that happened. But in many ways, this is a starting point. Even though it's end of the conference, it's a starting point for our long-term journey to AppSec maturity. The new maturity model that we saw, that we shared, S3M2, as we said, it's at 0.5. And we appreciate the feedback that we're given. We will take it, come up with an updated version, and we will actually have roadshows. We'll come to city near you and have an in-person workshop where you actually will go through how you can use that particular model for your company and customize it for that. And then we will take the input, make it better. So the whole idea is to open source this maturity model and let the community come up with a model that works for them. So if you have not given your input on your interest in being part of these workshops, please do go to the Purple Book community website, go to S3M2, and indicate the city that you would be interested in attending a workshop in. And if there is sufficient interest in that particular city, we will come have that workshop with you. So with thanks for the speakers and thanks to our sponsors, without whom this event could not have happened. We appreciate their support. I end this conference and I look forward to seeing you, hopefully in a city where you live, for an in-person workshop on journey to AppSec maturity. This is a journey that we are going to go take together. I look forward to seeing you there. Take care.